You'll notice I gave you a thesis here today. I was looking at the notes for this, and I decided that I'm not going to cover all of this. I'm going to try to hit some of the highlights here, but I wanted you to have it because it's important as you go through, start looking at it and remembering it. This is important for you, for your references. So we are going to look at some of this. Let me get my clicker right here. As you remember, we covered some things. We're still covering Daniel because we have to cover Daniel to get to understanding the Antichrist for chapter 13. My intent is to finish this up today so we can get into chapter 13 next week. I think I can do that. We have chapter 9, chapter 10, chapter 11. I think that's it. I think that's just 10, 11, yeah, and that's all that. We have 9, 11, and 12. Okay? So we have 3 more areas to cover. You remember in Daniel chapter 2, we talked about the empire structure. Remember we looked at Nebuchadnezzar's statue? And it kind of gave you Daniel showed us the governments of man leading up to the Antichrist. Then we saw the little horn. We saw the Antichrist coming out with the government of the day with 10 governments, and then one horn comes up in the middle, and that horn uproots 3 others. And then, then that horn can speak. So in other words, that other one is a spokesperson for all of those kingdoms, which makes sense. The Antichrist will be the main leader of the world. He will be the spokesperson for all the other governments. All the governments, that doesn't mean there's still not going to be a France or Italy or Europe or UK. It doesn't mean there's not going to be those countries when the Antichrist comes around, but it means they will all answer to him. You know what I mean? He will be the authority that they follow. That's why a lot of people think that it's something like the United Nations could be part of that, but every nation in the world doesn't follow the United Nations. So I would say it doesn't look that way. I think it's a different form of government that comes up, that's formed. It doesn't take long for governments to decide to form something. So, but either way, we looked at that. We looked at and notice, make sure I put the name in there so I could pronounce it. Antiochus, Epiphanes, Epiphanes, that's his name. That was the name of the king that came up during the 300 or 400 BC that did a lot of the destruction of Israel, that desecrated the kingdom. A lot of the things that people attributed to the Antichrist, they attributed to him. Well, the point is, though, that's not the Antichrist, though. He was an example. We've seen examples throughout history of people coming on the scene that were an Antichrist, but not the Antichrist. We'll still see. So we may see, Lord willing, I don't think so. I don't think we'll see another Antichrist. I think we'll see the Antichrist coming upon the scene. I think we're too close to the end. But so did my forefathers in front of me, right? We don't know. We don't know the time and the date because only the Father knows, according to what Jesus said. We know that Jesus does know in the tribulation, in Revelations, we know that Jesus gets the book and then he knows everything, right? I don't know how God keeps a secret from Jesus when God and Jesus are the same people. I don't know how you do that. But then don't get me off on the trail of the Trinity and try to explain that either. If he was to give me that information, I think if you've seen these things that you stick in the microwave and they're not supposed to be there and they explode, that's what my brain would do, wouldn't it? Because my brain is not equipped to handle those things that God would give, that God understands. My mind could not comprehend it. You're talking about sometimes we feed a computer too much and it overloads, it goes out of it. Or I just bought a new generator for my house, and I'm trying to get somebody to come wire it up for me. It won't cover the whole house. It covered the whole house except for the 240 stuff. So it still run the TV, the fans, stuff like that, but it won't run the stove and anything that's 240, it won't run. But that's fine because I'm not planning on having it that way for months. You know what I mean? I can live through it. The point is though, it has a limitation, it has a certain wattage, and if you go beyond the wattage, it will blow it up. because it can't handle it. You strain it beyond its ability. Well, our brain can't understand the things of God, but he tries to give us some information here in Revelation, and Daniel gives us some information also. Okay, so we saw that. So now we're into Daniel chapter 9. And in Daniel chapter 9, I've printed it out for you too in this little packet here. But in Daniel chapter 9, let's read it first. Verses 26 and 27. It says, "And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be a flood. And unto the end of the war desolations are determined. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for overspreading of abomination he shall make it desolate, even unto the consumption that determined shall be poured upon the desolate." Now, so we see it talks about the coming prince is connected to the final Gentile powers. We see after 62 weeks, the Messiah shall be cut off. 62 weeks is what? That's right. 62 weeks is 62 weeks. 63 score. A score is 6. Three score and 10. 60 is 20. That's right. So that's 60 is 62 weeks, right? Now, how many years is 62 weeks? It's only 1 year and a half. It's halfway in the middle of that. It is the middle of that last part, right? In the middle of that last part, because it says, "Too shall the Messiah be cut off, but not for himself." We'll get there. So Daniel 9 gives prophetic settings and timetable for the ruler whom Revelation 13 presents as the beast. So we see Daniel tells us the timetable of what's going to happen in Revelation chapter 13. He identifies him as the prince that shall come. He reveals his character, his satanic authority, his worldwide influence, his blasphemy, his persecution. You see those things in that verse of what he did. He deliberately tried to desecrate the worship of Jehovah. And Daniel emphasizes his covenant, his betrayal, abomination brings desolation. So if you look at this thing, and we give you phrase by phrase here, it says the Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. This points to the death of Jesus after 69 prophetic weeks. So after 69 prophetic weeks, remember Daniel has 70 weeks of Daniel. And 69 weeks of Daniel has already passed. We're in this period of limbo between the 69th week and the 70th week. The 70th week will not occur until the rapture occurs. And that will begin that last week or 7 years, right? Each one of those are 7 years. So we see there was a time period up till from the time that Daniel prophesied until Jesus was crucified was 69 weeks or 69 years. 7 weird. You know what I mean? 69. It's confusing. Each week was 7 years. So 69, 7 years. You understand what I mean? So that was the time period in which it happened. All these things happened until the 69th week when Jesus was crucified, when Jesus was cut off. That ended it. That began the 70th week. Now, Christ didn't die for his sins. We know he died for others. Daniel places the Messiah's sacrifice death before the rise of the final evil ruler. It's interesting. Daniel already was prophesying about Jesus and Jesus being crucified before. The Old Testament saints had to believe in Jesus the same way we do. And those that were in paradise, side of Hades, Jesus came and presented himself to them, and then they accepted, or not. I don't know who would not accept it, but it says the people of the prince shall come. Roman forces destroyed Jerusalem in AD 70. People cried out for destruction, while the prince is described as one who would come later. On the next page, he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. The he refers back to the coming prince. 1 week is understood as Daniel's final 7-year period, as I told you. The ruler confirms or enforces an agreement with many, apparently presenting himself first as a choice of order or security, but later presenting himself as God. It says, in the midst of the week, in the midpoint of the 7 years is 3.5 years. And Revelation 13:5 describes the beast exercising authority for 42 months, the same length of period. So we see there is a connection again between Daniel's time period and between the Antichrist time period. So you can look, here's a quick comparison there. I'm not going to do that for you, but you can see Daniel chapter 9 and Revelation chapter 13. You can see the comparison. So when we go back into Revelation chapter 13 and start looking at Revelation chapter 13, you can go back to Daniel that we've given you here and see that. All right. As we said here, he confirms a covenant for 1 week in chapter 9. He breaks it in the middle of the week. Remember, 7 years, the covenant, but then after that last half, it becomes really terrible. But what happens at the end of that what happens in the middle of the 7-year tribulation period that makes a difference? Do you remember? That is, and what else happens? That's when Satan is cast down upon the earth. So all that takes place at the same time. The two witnesses are killed, and Satan comes down. I think Satan coming down helped kill the two witnesses. All of that makes sense. I mean, I don't think there's just by accident. I think everything's planned. And so the Antichrist is ruler here for the first 3.5 years is peaceful. But when Satan comes back, Satan is mad now. He's ready to do war. And so therefore, he's using his power with the Antichrist, and the Antichrist is doing his bidding. And Satan is mad, remember? He's mad. So he probably, I would say the Antichrist becomes, if he wasn't total evil before that, he wasn't godly. You understand? But whenever he came that point, he was totally evil. Yeah. So we know that something that all that happens in that same time period, right? So we see that, and then he stops sacrifice and brings abomination. He won't let anybody else worship anything but him. Isn't that similar to what Nebuchadnezzar did? You see? These antichrists throughout time want to be God. Isn't that what Satan tried to do? Satan wanted to rise himself up. I am God. Well, he wasn't God. So we see that spirit of Antichrist, that spirit of Satan was still there. The diplomatic mask comes off in open tyranny. So what used to be a politician now is a tyrant. Haven't we seen that over and over again in these dictator countries? They start off showing peace. Do you think that could happen in America? Absolutely. If you elect them the Democrat Socialists, I think America could do it. We got some crazy people out there. Crazy people. Anyway, so we see Daniel 13 again, the coming prince, the final word, the final ruler, covenant confirmed, global influence is established, covenant was broken, forced worship and persecution. So here we see in Daniel chapter 9, we see in Revelations, when we see that comes, we see that Daniel had already prophesied that was what's going to happen. In Revelation 13, we see it happening. Well, John sees that happening. We don't see it until we won't see it. We'll be on that side. We'll be seeing it we'll be in the peanut gallery. All right. Next thing, let's look at Daniel chapter 11. Verses 36 through 45. And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desires of women, nor regard any god, for he shall magnify himself above all. But in his estate shall he honor the God of forces, and a God whom his father knew not shall be honored with gold and silver, and with precious stones and pleasant things. Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. And he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain. And at that time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter into the country, and shall overflow and pass over. He shall enter also into glorious lands, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. And he shall stretch forth his hand upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. And the Liberians and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy, and utterly to make away many. And he shall plant the tabernacle of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. Now this talks about a king, a wicked, evil king that has power, right? It describes the final ruler, his character, his religion. He's doing a religion that no one has ever heard of before, right? He creates a new religion here, because he's God, right? He creates a religion which he is God. He does military campaigns. He conquers. He forces them into submission. You see? It kind of reminds like Nazi Germany, don't it? They forced people into that. Or the Japanese during World War II. They did the same thing. They took over people and forced them into servitude. Or even the Muslims during the Crusades, who captured and forced people to become Muslims or die. Revelation 13 describes the same ruler as the beast. Daniel gives a ground level picture of the king's action. The king shall do according to his will. This ruler is willful, self-directed, unrestrained by ordinary morals or religious limits. He doesn't have any morality. He shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god. Self-exaltation is one of the clearest identifying features of Antichrist. He self-exalts himself. You know, I am the greatest. I am God. He does not merely oppose true worship. He seeks the position that belongs to God alone. Why is that surprising? Because he's controlled by Satan, and isn't that what Satan wants to do? So we see that this Antichrist is really incarnate Satan. Now, was the serpent in the garden Satan? He was not. He was a serpent. But he was possessed totally by Satan. This Antichrist will be just like the serpent in the garden. He will be totally possessed by Satan, speaking the words that Satan tells him to say. Shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. Oh, it says, shall speak marvelous things against the God. Marvelous things here are astonishing, arrogant words directed against God. Sometimes if you hear people say things about God, you think, I can't believe you're saying that. I'm shocked by it. You know, I've heard people use the F word with Jesus. I'm saying, what? And they just say that in passing. What are you just trying to pick a word to be the most blasphemous that you can be? You know what I mean? That's what this guy does. Whatever's the most provocative anti-God jargon is what he's using here. Shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. His success is real, but is temporary and limited by God's determined purposes. He only has the power that God allows him to have. He gives him the rope. It's kind of like when you've been fishing. I'm not a big fisherman, but I know people who do. And I know those guys got those big fish, and you can't pull the line quick. You got to let the fish run, right? Let the fish run to tire out a little bit, those big fish. So you just keep pulling them in, resistance a little bit at a time until you finally get them in the boat, right? But you got to let them run. If not, you'll lose the line. They'll break that line. Okay? Well, God allows this Antichrist to run. He's got him on the hook. He knows he's going to pull in the boat. He knows his time is numbered. So he lets him run his course. And then he pulls in when it's his time. Neither shall he regard any God. The rulers reject inherited religion, natural affections, and every competing objective of devotion. He wants to be the only devotional, the only one devoted to. No one else. I guess even husband and wife wouldn't be acceptable to him. The difficult phrase, the desire of women, has received several interpretations, including normal human affections, marriage, or particular objective or religious desires. The central point here is no traditional loyalty restrains him. In other words, it doesn't matter. He wants all love to be to him and no one else. So perhaps he stops marriages. You understand? He doesn't want any affection going to anyone else but himself. He magnifies himself above all, agreeing with self-deifying worship demanded. He shall honor the God of force. True confidence is in his power, his military strength, his conquest, his court. He believes he is the most powerful person on the earth and controls and can squash anything. He rewards those who support his system. Sounds like Nazi Germany, doesn't it? Still, I'm telling you. Places them over many and distributes land for gain. If they follow him, he'll give them more of the victor's spoils. The dragon is the unseen source of the beast's power. Military force is the visible instruments through which the power is exercised. At the time of the end, this expresses the place of the climatic conflict in the closing period of the Gentile world dominion. At the time of the end. Time of the end is the end of the 7-year period. The kings of the south and north move against him, but his counterattack sweeps through many countries. So we see somebody tries to overcome him. Some country says, we're not doing this anymore. He's a crazy man. Revelation 13 views his rule globally, stating that authority is given him over the kindred tongues. It says, he shall enter into the glorious land. The glorious land is Israel. Knowing the final conflict enters significantly on the land promised to God's people. See, he knows this land was promised to God's people, so he's taking it for his own. He don't belong to God's people, belongs to me, God. I am God. His campaign includes Israel, surrounding territories as Egypt, Libya, Ethiopia. Ruther does not supply the geographical details. Daniel adds the regional movement beyond the beast. So we see in here, Daniel gives us the location, and Revelation chapter 13, he doesn't. He just tells us what's happening. But we know now from Daniel that it was happening here in Israel, Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopia. He says, he shall have power over the treasures. Many military conquests brings control of wealth, national resources. And in 13 expands the economic dimension through the mark, by which buying and selling are restricted to those aligned with the beast. Daniel shows seized wealth. Revelation shows a controlled economic system. He shall go forth with great fury to destroy. Troubling reports provoke a final outburst of rage. Let me get in here. I'll get there in just a minute. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. The ruler established his headquarters near the glorious holy mountain, but strategic positions cannot prevent his judgment. Daniel announces his helpless end without describing it fully. He just says he will come to his end. He don't describe it. Revelation 19 will describe it one day when we get there. Okay? But Daniel describes he will come to an end. Okay, and then we give you those 11, the comparison. Let's look at what we got up here. He does according to his own will. He exalts himself above every god. He speaks against gods of gods. He honors force and rewards those who acknowledge him. Military conquest is what he's got. His religion is self-exaltation enforced by power. His religion is he's developed his own religion. I am God, you will worship me. We've seen that before. So we see Daniel say, he exalts himself, he honors force, and his words of reliability, loyalty. Okay, last one, Daniel 12. In Daniel 12, and I've given you all this information, so I'm moving too fast for you. You've got plenty of time to go back and read it for yourself. How's that? But look at Revelation. We're only 2 verses here in chapter 12. He says, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Who is this? The Christians. They're the ones that are written in the book. Which Christians? Which saved Christians? The tribulation saints. Not the rest of us. We've already been saved. We don't need Michael, do we? This is not us. This is the tribulation saints whose names are still being written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Because you've got to have your name in the Lamb's Book of Life if you're going to heaven. Daniel 7, verse 7. He said, and I heard the man clothed in linen, which was among the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and sware by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time and a half, 3.5 years. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. See, Daniel chapter 12 describes unparalleled trouble that comes upon Israel during the time of the end. And Revelation 13 identifies chief earthly persecutors during the period as the beast. Daniel, time and a half equals 3.5 years, which corresponds to Revelation chapter 13, 42 months. It says at the time, the phrase connects Daniel 12 with the end time, described in Daniel 11. It points to the period where the willful king reaches its final campaign and comes to his appointed end. And Revelation 13 describes the beast rule within the same period. Shall Michael stand up? Michael's the great angelic priest associated especially with Israel. Stand up indicates decisive action in defense of Daniel's people during this great time. Michael, now we learn, Michael is the great protector of Israel. Remember, we saw that they were going to be protected, right? They're protected by Michael. Michael, now, why is that important? What did Michael just get through doing? He's got through kicking Satan's butt out of heaven, remember? There was war in heaven, and Satan and the hosts of God prevailed. Now Satan is down cast on the earth. Who's down the earth with him now? Michael has taken him and his angels down to earth to do what? To protect the nation of Israel during those last time period. We already saw they were going to be protected. Now we know they're going to be protected by Michael and his army. Revelation 12 provides the closest parallel. We showed that. The great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. Thy people refers to Daniel's people, Israel. The tribulation has a worldwide reach, but Daniel's placed special attention on Israel. A time of trouble such as never was. Not ordinary hardship, but unparalleled period of distress. You know, the last 3.5 years are torture. At that time thy people shall be delivered. The trouble is severe, but it does not cancel God's covenant faithfulness to Israel. Deliverance does not mean that no believer suffers or dies. Revelation records many martyrs during this period. It means the beast cannot destroy God's redemptive purpose or prevent the ultimate delivery of those who belong to him. It says, everyone that's written in the book. The book signifies God's knowledge and ownership of his people. Revelation 13 presents the same decisive division. Those whose names are written in the book of life worship the beast. Not written in the Lamb of life, worship the beast. The central theme is allegiance. The world follows the beast. Now, some would say this is only the Jews that are written in the book, but I think it applies to all those who are written in the book. I don't think God has a book, turn the page, for Jews and Gentiles. Do you? He just has a book. And I think that all the people in there. So the thing, that same protection that he's given the nation of Israel during this time period is also given, well, I think those that are in the book, well, let's don't go off. I'll jump off that. We'll get there when we get there. To scatter the power of the holy people. The period reaches its climax when the strength and self-reliance of holy people have been shattered. Revelation 13 describes the beast being permitted to overcome the saints outwardly through persecution and death. Our defeat is not spiritual defeat. The saints overcome the dragon by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Remember? God brings his people to the end of human strength so that deliverance is recognized. All these things shall be finished. The persecution has a divine appointed conclusion. The beast 42 months do not become 43. His authority ends exactly when God has determined. And Daniel announced that the period will finish. Revelation 19 reveals the beast's judgment when Christ returns. And then on the back page you have that. So let's look at our final notes here. Daniel described a time of trouble unlike anything before. The pressure is real and must not be minimized. God's people are delivered. God delivers his people. The final period is measured time and a half. It's 3.5 years. Revelation 13 gives the same final window of 42 months. So we see Daniel 13, we saw the unmatched trouble, we saw God's people delivered, and we saw time and a half. So we see the 3-year period. All these corresponds. So you can see that Daniel had that. So Revelation 13 brings Daniel into focus. The beast raises from the sea. The dragon gives his power, seat, and authority. Gives him power, seat, and authority. The world worships the dragon and the beast. The beast blasphemes God with the worst, foulest, blasphemy he can blaspheme God. The beast makes war with the saints. The mark controls buying and selling. So we see from Daniel and John, we see the area of political power. Daniel, we see final generic Gentile kingdom. And Revelation 13, I'm going to go here so I can see. We see beast with global authority. We see spiritual rebellion. Daniel speaks against God. He speaks against God and blasphemes and falsifies prophets. The pressure wears out the saints. War, worship, and economic control. We see the parallel between Daniel and between Revelations. So how Daniel protects our interpretation. The beast is not only a symbol or a system. It's not. It's a real person. The beast is not unlimited. He has limited power only within those time periods. The beast is not victorious. In the end, he will lose. The final crisis is spiritual, political, and worship-centered. All those things are the final battle is going to consist of spiritual warfare, political warfare, and worship-centered false religion. Every earthly throne stands under God's final throne. Before we start verse by verse, read Revelation 13 through Daniel prophecy. We did take the beast seriously without giving him the final word. Expect deception, blasphemy, persecution, and worship pressure. That's what we're going to see in 13. Keep the time limit in view. Remember, he works within a small window. Keep God's everlasting kingdom in view. God is in control. And we're not going to cover that. Let me see if there's anything. Y'all better, because I know Karen writes it down. So Daniel gives the background. Revelation gives the final unveiling. Antichrist will deceive, dominate, blaspheme, and persecute. His power is real but measured. His end is certain because God's kingdom is everlasting. Okay. Did you get that, Karen? All right. Whew. We got it done. I know I rushed. I didn't try to rush too bad, but I gave you this notes. Please go back and read it because this is very helpful. Okay? And as we go through 13, we have this to rely upon. Okay? We're going to cover 13 going forward is what it reads for us. We're not going to try to refer much back to Revelations. We will assume, Daniel, we will assume that that's what it means, okay? When we use it in Revelation chapter 13, we will use it as a reference, not necessarily as, you know what I mean? We know where we got it from. Does that make sense? Okay. Does anybody have any more prayer requests that they want to add to our prayer request list? Well, let's have a word of prayer first for the other. Lord, I thank you so much for this time. I thank you, Lord, for your word. I pray, Lord, you help us to understand Daniel's connection to Revelation chapter 13. Lord, we realize the Antichrist is real. He's coming. It's going to be awful. But that awful is only going to be for a time period before you take over and finish it off. For we know you're in control of everything. For the mighty name of Jesus we pray. Amen.